Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. I am a speech pathologist and a neurotherapist who's been practicing neurofeedback and other treatment approaches with both children and adults. Most of the children I work with are neurodivergent, and the adults I work with are a combination of people struggling with mental health issues, as well as the neurodivergent population of adults. And I've been in this space for about 25 years. I love neuroscience. I love everything that has to do with the brain and the body and how the brain and the body connect in everyday life. Thank you very much. That's a great question. I studied psychology in my undergraduate program. So I double majored in psychology. So I have a very, very strong psychology background. And then I decided to pursue a career in speech pathology, or speech therapy, they're the same thing. But I chose the route of medical speech pathology, which put me in more of a hospital setting. So I dealt more with the brain, basically. So I was dealing with um, everything from stroke to head trauma in both children and adults, and everything to do with the brain. So I learned a tremendous amount about how the brain works, how it drives behavior, um, and what that looks like in sort of everyday life with both people who have been diagnosed with something and people who haven't. And that's really where I got excited about getting into the world of neurofeedback. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question for me? You cut out a little bit in that last one. Oh, that symptoms don't tell the entire story? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically, when we're talking about symptoms, we're talking about behaviors or outward manifestations of something. So we can look at those symptoms, and if we're trying to figure out a way to improve those symptoms or heal those symptoms, in most cases, we can trace it back to some type of brain function. And so that's where I really specialize is saying, okay, we have this group of behaviors that we're seeing, or we have these challenges that we're seeing. And if they're dysfunctional in any way, so remember, I'm only going to be working with people who come to me and say, there's a problem here. And so I sort of I know how to trace it back to the brain and look at the brain and how the brain is operating. And most of the time, I'm able to uncover the reason for the particular behavior, challenge, or symptom that we're seeing in everyday life. I love that question. You're right. We see a lot of ADHD, um, especially since we have been through COVID. Um, and I would say the brain is very complex and it's very rare that when we are looking at ADHD clinically, that it is a solo manifestation or that it's the only thing going on within the brain systems. So it's extremely rare. Um, we typically uncover multiple issues going on alongside the ADHD. So I like to call them best friends. So very often ADHD's best friend is going to be anxiety, some type of anxiety. So when we're looking at the brain, we look at systems, brain systems, and often a system is going to have several different functions wrapped up into it. So if we can look at the system, we have several functions. If we work on that system and we improve the system, then we typically get improvement in a variety of different functions, not only attention. Yeah. So neurofeedback is a modality that we can use that helps the brain learn how to train itself almost. We're really just supporting some of the input. So you have to think about it this way. With neurofeedback, we're combining operant conditioning, which is a psychological concept, Pavlovian dog. The principle of neurons that fire together wire together, which is basically neuroplasticity. So the brain learns healthier patterns through an immediate feedback sort of schedule and a repeated feedback schedule. So every second, the brain will ask, should I do that again or should I do something else? That's learning, right? The brain is always learning. So neurofeedback rewards healthy brain activity, which makes it more likely to happen again. And if we have 5 conditions in place to optimize learning, and those 5 conditions are based on psychological principles, then we know we can change a behavior, we can change a brain pattern. So, neurofeedback really just trains the brain's hardware. And then we incorporate some cognitive behavioral training, which trains the software. So, a calmer brain can use better cognitive strategies, which sort of, brings us back to the space of an attention issue, right? So, attention, emotional regulation, sleep, impulse control, those are all symptoms or outputs of those brain networks I was talking about. So, better network function produces better behavior. Does that make sense? I lost you for a minute there. Sorry. Absolutely. I say you hit the nail on the head with the exact symptoms that I treat most often, in both kids and adults. Adults call it brain fog. In the child population, we would probably call that attention or lack of organization skills. Another big term that we use in my practice is executive function, or if you lack it, then executive dysfunction, right? So, neurofeedback is one of the best tools to be able to help with those exact issues, right? Because again, everything starts with those brain networks. Um, and if we use the learning theory, then we can say, okay, we're going to use operant conditioning to teach the brain a better pattern. That better pattern is then going to reduce something like cognitive fatigue or brain fog. I would say one of the things that surprises me the most is somebody will come into the clinic with a very specific condition or complaint or symptom. And once we're able to do the brain map, the QEEG, um, we are able to uncover several other issues that are contributing to the primary issue that that person is coming into the clinic for. A perfect example of this that we see often in the teenagers. So I might get a 12 or 13-year-old coming into the clinic, and the complaint is, attention and lack of organization and poor processing. So I'll work on those three skills in the clinic, which is we get beautiful results and grades get better and behavior gets better. But then I'll have the parents say to me, and strangely enough, my child can pitch better. So if they're a pitcher, they play baseball, right? All of a sudden, now that child's sports ability or pitching skills are better than they've ever been. And we didn't work on pitching skills, right? Or math skills get better. We didn't work on math skills. So it's a testament to how the brain is such a complex structure, such a complex organ, and how interwoven all the different areas of the brain are. So you treat one thing and you get a beautiful result in something that you thought was completely unrelated to the one thing that that person came in for. I would say the most common misconception is people think that we are using electrical stimulus and we're inputting that into the brain so that we're feeding the brain something electrical to stimulate it. And that's not what neurofeedback is. There's some other treatments that do that. Neurofeedback is not that treatment. Neurofeedback is a one way we're reading brain waves and then we're feeding back information. And that feedback that we provide is sensory in nature. So it's touch, so vibrations, it's sound, and it's visual feedback. So I would say that's one of the most common misconceptions. The other misconception is that it doesn't work. There's no research behind it. It's not a sound treatment approach that's been research proven, and that's absolutely false. That is just uh, I don't know. Here in America, we have a very strong pharmaceutical platform, and I think in most cases, that's what takes priority over something like neurofeedback. In other countries, neurofeedback is the first line of fire, the first treatment approach, the first treatment modality that's going to be recommended. But in the United States, it's not. Yeah, that's a great question. So, um, neurofeedback has become a lot more mainstreamed, I would say, over the last 5 years with devices that are being marketed that can be used at home. So, at home use devices, and some of these devices are very good, others are not great, but um, we can use neurofeedback to put the brain into a state of peak performance. We know what that looks like in terms of what brain waves are being called into action during peak performance or during, I mean, a lot of athletes call it being in the zone. Um, and so we know how to drive brain waves into that particular zone where performance is going to increase. So for peak performance, it's actually not a difficult, let's call it a protocol. It's not a difficult protocol for us to be able to do with professional athletes, for instance, top executives of companies. I do peak performance with some executives who just need to be in the zone, who need to limit distractions and increase their ability to stay focused for longer periods of time without having anxiety. You mentioned, did you mention concussion as well? Yeah. So with concussion and head injury, because we're using a QEEG, which is the diagnostic tool, we're able to see what areas of the brain need a little bit of support post concussion. So we are able to tackle those areas and we're able to provide some really great neurofeedback protocols that help with the recovery process. And the nice thing about neurofeedback with concussion is almost always there's going to be uh, cognitive deficits as well as what I'm going to call social emotional deficits. So there's anxiety, there's depression, there are a lot of these types of symptoms. And so neurofeedback does a beautiful job of working on both the cognitive aspects as well as some of these, what I'm calling social emotional aspects, because it really works on regulation and central nervous system regulation incorporates all of that. So it's a beautiful tool to be able to deal with some of those, social emotional aspects as well as the cognitive aspects that a lot of people post concussion or post head injury are dealing with. I'm going to be honest with you. I would be hard pressed to find anybody who couldn't benefit from trying to optimize their brain function, right? So that's the question we ask. If you want to optimize your brain health and your brain wellness and your brain function, the same way that we optimize our physical health, we go to the gym, we go meditate. There's no reason why brain health and wellness cannot fall into that same category. Um, how can I optimize my brain function? So for you, without even doing a brain map, um, obviously, I would ask some questions. Do you find that you have brain fog? Would be a question. Do you find that you get fatigued easily? Does your brain get fatigued easily? Do you find that you struggle with attention and focus? Um, if yes is the answer to any of those questions, then I would say, yeah, we can do some brain training. We can do some neurofeedback. We can do some brain entrainment, anything that is going to help optimize brain function. And I'll come back to how I started this conversation and say, who can't use some brain optimization, right? Correct. So the process of neurofeedback is a very you're not really conscious that it's happening. Um, it's very that's what makes it so abstract and hard to explain and hard for people to sort of tangibly understand what it is, because it's happening more with the unconscious mind. But uh, through the process of neurofeedback, once you get 10 sessions deep into it, um, my clients will say, I just feel more relaxed, or I can stay focused longer, or I find that I don't get as upset as I used to get with my children. So these very subtle shifts start to happen. And it's really because these are central nervous system regulation pieces, right? And if we were to sit back and analyze our own behaviors and how we react to things and interact with things, we would probably be able to write our own story about what kinds of things are not working for us or where we think we might need some guidance. What excites me most about it? Oh, I do. Do we have another hour to talk about this? I feel like we are on the cusp right now of moving into a whole different way of looking at brain health and wellness. And we're on the cusp of having some of these technologies that we've been using for 25 years in the clinic and in the labs and in our research, um, coming to the forefront and being accessible to the everyday person. And so I feel that we've got a whole movement that's coming, and it's going to be amazing because people are going to have knowledge that they didn't have about how we can be in control of our own brain health and wellness and not have to rely on psychiatric care or medications that may not be the best answer for us. So, our job, my job, is to bring this knowledge to the mainstream so that people are not afraid, so that people feel supported, so that people are excited about being able to treat some of these challenges that have always been just labeled as clinical and dysfunctional. We need to look at it in a completely different way. And we know how to do it. We have the tools. We have advanced in this particular brain science um, area and of study, and we know how to do these things. Really, I'm sorry. Could you reword the question one more time for me? If somebody feels like they have a challenge or an issue that we've talked about uh, over the length of this talk, I would say the first step is to empower yourself with some knowledge about treatments or approaches that are available. You just have to Google it. We're living in the era of AI. So, you just type in what is neurofeedback, or you do some research on what neurofeedback is because, um, that would be the first step. And I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like demographically, we've made a huge shift, and I'm having more phone calls about, it's been recommended that I take medication for this. I don't want to take medication. Or it's been recommended that my child has ADHD. The doctor's recommending to put them on a stimulant. We don't want to. What are our options? And so I've always called myself the last house on the block. Most families, doctors are not recommending neurofeedback. Not many people know what it is. It's like the best hidden secret, and I don't want it to be a hidden secret anymore. So instead of being the last house on the block, I would rather be the first house on the block. So, like I said, it's my job to start spreading the word and just to impart to people there are other treatment approaches besides just medication. And I would recommend that people explore those other options before they decide to go down the road of traditional psychiatric care and medication approaches. Yeah, I'm on all the social media. Neurozone Wave is my company, so at Neurozone Wave. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, I'm on it. My website is neurozonewave.com. Please, I encourage everybody to come and join me. Check out some of my posts, and let's start getting some of this great knowledge that I have out to the mainstream so people have options. People have options, and they have options where they can be in the driver's seat, where they're not a victim of what is being prescribed to them. Instead, they're in the driver's seat of their own health and wellness. Thank you so much for having me, Dominic. I appreciate it. Absolutely. Your questions were
All right.
excellent. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Thank you.